Hello everybody, welcome back. We've got Yanks on the call, and today we're going to be continuing our Modern Horizons 3 limited set review. Our new rating system is 1 to 10 based on how we think it will perform in the average limited deck, both draft and sealed. Not looking at a ton of synergy, and yeah, welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be back and having fun with the new rating system, trying to figure out just exactly where things fall along that line.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble like getting my groove, figuring out what I want to do, but I think we're getting there. If you guys missed, White is already up. In fact, I think I'm launching them all at the same time. So they're all up, but the most important is the introduction to Modern Horizons 3. We go over returning mechanics, draftable archetypes, and all of those fun things. So please go back and check that one out. It'll help you with the set reviews that we do here today. Okay, you ready to jump in?
Best color in Magic, can't wait.
Boo! Aether Spike. I was not a good transition there. Boo! Aether Spike. 2 mana for an instant. Choose target spell. You get 2 energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy, counter that spell, unless they pay 1 for each energy paid this way. So it is, at its base, 2 mana for unless they pay 2, which is not enough for me personally. And then you can get more if you have other counter synergy or any energy synergy. Sorry, and that is nice that it's flexible in that way, and you can save 1 energy if you do have the energy deck. But overall, I'm not in love with this card.
Me neither. Just pay 2 has never been good enough. I mean, if you're playing blue-white energy and you can make a lot of it, then great, but you're going to probably want to use the energy for other things. So even in that deck, this is probably only okay at best.
Yeah, I'm on board for like a 3. This is pretty low to me.
Yeah, I'm a little higher. I'd probably put it at a 4 because I will stick this in my deck if I have to. It's not terrible. It's just not exciting.
All right, 3 and 4. Amphibian Downpour. Oh my god, it's Don't Starve Together. Oh god, run. We have an enchantment aura, 3 mana for a flash with storm. Enchant creature. Whenever enchant creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. And then the storm is when you cast this spell, for each spell cast before it, you may choose new targets for the copies. This is interesting because you don't tend to see storm on non-instants and sorceries. Like it happens, and now we do have ways to make tokens that are permanent or like that are auras, right? We saw that with like Wilds of Eldraine, right? You were making auras.
Yeah, you made the token auras.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this is, right?
Yeah, I'm actually not 100% sure that Storm has ever been on a non-instant or sorcery before.
Yeah, and this says the copies become tokens. This is incredibly interesting.
Mystery boosters, it started showing up, and then Modern Horizons 2, you had a creature with it. Progenitor Ooze.
I think this is neat, and honestly, 3 mana for a flash make a frog is not terrible. I would play that anyway. That'd be a little steep for a rare, I think, a little less exciting, but certainly not something I would cut. So the fact that this has storm is great in my book. I'm here for this.
Yeah, I feel like you're just viewing Storm in this case as like maybe you get a second one.
Yeah.
Like you're not looking to, tendril somebody out with 10 of these. That's just not going to happen in limited. But
No.
you can get 2 copies of this. Sure, that's 2 removal spells for 3 mana.
I feel like you can easily get 3. Like, not easily, but I don't think it will be uncommon for you to play this on your opponent's end step, right? And get like their creature and their removal spell gives you 3 of these.
Sure.
I don't think it's super uncommon. There's a whole archetype about like playing more than 1 spell per turn, so this will just eat those decks alive, basically, which is really fun.
Yeah. Still, I'm not thrilled with this card. Like, it's fine. I'll play it.
What are you looking for rating wise?
It's like a 6.
I'm a little higher. I'm going to give this a 7. I think that this is sweet. I think the average number of frogs I'm pretty happy with, so. Not far. We're averaging the same score, right? I was a little lower on the counter.
Yep.
Bespoke Battle Wagon. We have a 5/6 vehicle that you can tap to make 2 energy. That's good. This is an uncommon energy generator, which we haven't really seen in white. It was like temporary. This is like, multiple instances of energy, which is cool. You can tap, pay 2 energy to tap a creature, pay 3 to draw a card, pay 4. It becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, but it has crew 4, so you don't have to do that. I think this is neat. It's 4 mana is kind of a lot, but you can tap it to get energy because it's an artifact right away. So this is a good enabler for that deck.
Yeah, I mean, you play this, you make 2 energy. Your next turn, well, I guess not because they both tap. You don't get your card back until turn 3 if you're trying to draw a card this way. But if you have any other energy, it replaces itself on the next turn it's out, and then it's just all upside from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting to draw a card, having a decently statted vehicle that can kind of crew itself, draw some cards. I think this is going to be very good in the energy deck, and I think it's like a borderline playable otherwise. So I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is like a 5.
Well, I'm higher than that on this. I think I've got this as, well, not crazy high, like a 6.
I think the 5 is kind of my average. I feel like it won't make the cut in a lot of my decks that want nothing to do with energy, if that makes sense. And then I have it at like a 6-7 in an energy deck. So I tried to like find that happy medium because it's not worth a split rating, I don't think.
No, I agree with that. I just think the 4 is a little higher, I guess, than you do.
Yeah. All right. Brain Surge, 3 mana for an instant. Draw 4 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. It's an expensive brainstorm.
Yep, and they keep trying to make different versions of Brainstorm to kind of fix it for a lower power level format, and they just end up not really ever being that good.
Well, I mean, it's a fine line between not good and busted, right? And in fact, I think that line is invisible sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I guess explain what you mean by that.
What do you mean?
What do you mean that it's invisible?
I mean, like, it is an unattainable target. I feel like if you, depending on the goal of the card that you're trying to make, there might not be a way to make it good, but not bad and not busted, right? It might be an invisible line that, like, you cannot hit.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's the case here. Like, no. I'm not a game designer in the slightest, but it does seem like an incredibly tough thing to do for a lot of cards. Rating-wise, I think this is still fine. Draw 2, essentially. You get to reorder some. You get to draw the best 2 of the top 4. And this is good.
Yeah, and just like Brainstorm itself, this card gets way better if you have shuffle effects, and we have the common fetch lands in this set.
Yeah.
So that makes this card much better than it would be otherwise.
I mean, think of how happy we used to be for just Divination, which is 3 mana, sorcery speed, draw 2. You're still going to have to draw those other 2 cards. You didn't get to dig deeper. So, like, even if you're putting crappy cards back on top and you are going to have to draw those, at least you got to choose what you used right now. Like you said, it gives you the chance to shuffle them away. But even then, I don't need that to be happy here.
Yeah. I agree. It's more like psychological than real that like bricking on this and having to then draw 2 feels worse than the divination, even if your next 2 cards are dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think this card's probably pretty good for limited.
Rating wise, I am happy here. I think I would not cut the first one of these. I'm going to say that this is a 6.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been kind of downgrading the card. I'm a little higher on it. I have it as like a 6.5.
I honestly was a little higher on it. I was debating between the two, but I kind of decided to hedge my bets a bit. I think I am pretty close to a 7. But again, I haven't really figured out a rating scale. I feel like I have it down for creatures, but my instants and sorcery gauge is still a little like loosey-goosey.
Well, it's tricky that the first one we're doing this with is a Modern Horizons set where everything's going to be a little higher power level too.
Yeah, we had 1 through 5 like locked in, like, card is this, it means this, it is this rating. It was sort of like a grading rubric for like a teacher, right? Like,
yep,
10% or whatever, every 10% is a thing. But like now it's like a little bit more wishy-washy. We have a little bit more room to wiggle. And 7 still feels so high to me. I think that's why I'm sort of like downplaying cards like that last one, is because 7 feels
Sure.
high.
That's fair.
Consign to Memory. We have 1 mana for an instant with Replicate 1. When you cast the spell, copy it for each time you paid the Replicate cost. Counter target triggered ability or colorless spell. I think this is maybe a side... I don't even think this is a sideboard card. There are some colorless stuff going on in this set. There's some Eldrazi's and stuff, so I'm going to say it's a 2 in the sideboard.
Yeah, I think this is a sideboard card. The amount of devoid creatures in the set, which are all colorless, or devoid cards, plus just some straight up colorless cards and the handful artifacts, means I'd be pretty happy to have one of these floating around in my sideboard.
Yeah, I think it's fine, but it's not like enchantment and artifact removal that I want in every sideboard. Like, if I don't have this, I feel like it's not going to matter most of the time. Of course, more is always more, right? You want answers to everything in your sideboard, but if I had to choose between this or like a more classic artifact or enchantment removal, I would choose that. The artifact and enchantment removal.
Yeah, I think I probably would, but I don't think it's that far apart.
Interesting. All right, Copy Crook, 4 mana for a 0/0 shapeshifter rogue. Whenever you play Copy Crook, enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except when this creature attacks, it connives. Wow, this is very strong feeling. And it doesn't have to be a creature you control, which is usually like the signpost of like, this is a fine card, but not a good card. This seems like a great card to me.
Yeah, this is always the tied for the best creature on the battlefield, and actually in this case better because you add the connive
Yeah.
trigger. This is actually just better than the best creature on the battlefield.
This feels like a pretty decent rare. I'm surprised this is an uncommon.
Yeah, that's probably the Modern Horizons effect.
Yeah, I would not. I would have thought that's like, oh, that's a fine rare, not a bomb or anything, but like that's what I would have thought. So rating wise, goodness, this feels so much better than some of the cards I've been giving a 7, but it doesn't quite feel an 8.
Yeah, because it still falls prey to the, if this enters the battlefield, it then dies and hasn't done anything. I mean, granted, it might copy something with an ETB effect, maybe, but we don't know that.
Yeah, I still think this is very good. 7.5, final answer.
Yep, that's where I am as well.
All right, Corrupted Shapeshifter, 4 mana for an Eldrazi Shapeshifter with Devoid. As Corrupted Shapeshifter enters the battlefield, it becomes your choice of a 3/3 creature with flying, a 2/5 with vigilance, or an 0/12 with defender. Okay, so it has no color, which is relevant in this set. There are things that care about that. 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer is like, okay. I mean, all of this creature options are fine for the rate. I don't know why we want an 0/12, but like, sometimes you just need a big back porch, and that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it does come up, but how often do you want an 0/12 when a 2/5 won't just do the job?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while they have like a dinosaur type.
Yeah.
I was gonna say in case they have something really big, but the really big things in this set are probably 12/12s or bigger.
Yeah.
Like, isn't Emrakul reprinted, right?
There is an Emrakul in this set, yes.
Yeah, so either way, I think the rating is fine. I'm not in love with it. I love the flexibility. I think Eldrazi might be relevant. I think Devoid might be relevant, but I think other than that, it's just fine. I'm gonna say 5.
Yeah, I think I would get it 5 as well. Maybe I could see myself being a little higher on the card because of its flexibility, but none of the choices are that good.
Yeah, I agree it is flexible, but I'm not in love with the other two options. I feel like more often than not, it's just a flyer.
Yeah,
and
that'll be most of the time.
It's a little, at this point, overcosted for what we've seen for flyers and stuff lately. Like, a lot of 3/3 flyers for 4 have like given you an investigate when it dies, things like that, and it feels a little bit better. Deem Inferior, 4 mana for a sorcery. When you cast, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each card you've drawn this turn. Okay, so it's always 3 because it's a sorcery, so that's fine. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it into their library second from the top.
Or the bottom. Or on the bottom.
Um, it's always a maximum of 3 mana, right? Because it's a sorcery. So I think that this is an okay rate for, especially for a common. I would play this. I like bounce spells. It's not just a bounce spell. It's actually like net neutral because it's putting it back into their library. So I'm fine with the first one of these.
Yeah. Well, you're trading evenly on cards and potentially gaining some mana advantage if you are either drawing a bunch of cards or you're hitting something big.
Yeah. Rating wise, it doesn't do a ton else. So it is only delaying the inevitable when it comes to a big scary creature you can't beat. So probably just a 5.
Yeah, I think I'm at 6 only because we've seen a lot of modified stuff in this set, so getting to reset that stuff could be useful.
That's true. Like we saw some support in white as well, and things that just added counters,
Yep.
not that things that put counters themselves. Even the adapt creatures, bricking them for a couple extra turns is really nice.
Yeah, or knocking some auras off. I mean, granted, it doesn't help with the bestow creatures, but some regular auras.
Or germs. Some of them had high equip
Yep.
costs.
Yep.
All right, Depth Defiler, 5 mana for a 3/5 with Devoid and Kicker 1 colorless specific. When you cast the spell, choose one. If it was kicked, choose both instead. Return target creature to its owner's hand, or target player draws 2 cards, then discards a card. I like this card a lot. Even if you don't pay the kicker, if you never draft anything, you're just playing blue and you don't draft any colorless mana specifically. A 3/5 that bounces their card for tempo is great. A 3/5 that lets you draw more gas when you are ahead, even better. I think this card's fine. I'm not cutting this. It's a 6.
Yeah, I think I've got this as a 7. I really like this card. It always, at worst, replaces itself with filtering.
Mm-hmm.
And the kicker cost doesn't. Again, we've got 10 of those colorless fetch lands that all tap for colorless at common. I don't think it's going to be that hard to find some colorless mana for your deck.
Yeah, some decks might not want to have it if it's a 3-color deck. Like, you have those same mana restrictions for things like that, and I don't know. I've been having some bad luck getting my fixing and things lately, so
Well, it's a little weird here, right? Because those 3-color decks specifically want those lands.
yeah, but you want to crack them, right?
But
A lot of
you
times you're going to
definitely
need
have.
them.
Yeah, if you, you're right. There'll be times you'll use it early and you won't get to use it. But sometimes you might be able to delay a turn to get this off. So at least that you're getting to kind of put it in your deck for free.
Yeah. It is definitely going to be free. I think it's good on its own. I would rather the kicker be like 3 but not include that forced colorless personally.
Oh.
3 is maybe a little of an exaggeration, but
Yeah, I think
so for me, I'm just rating it without this and just looking at that as an upside. If you can do it, great, but like I'm not expecting you to be able to do it on the norm.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, probably not. Will not necessarily happen regularly, but I think pretty much every deck will have the capability to pay it.
Maybe. All right. Still very close. Yep. Dreamtide Whale. How are we only on the D's so far? 3 mana for a 7/5 with Vanishing 2. That means when this creature enters a battlefield with 2 time counters on it at the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from it. Then, when the last one is removed, you get to sacrifice it. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, proliferate. So any player, so your opponents cannot cast extra spells unless they let you keep the whale. You can cast extra spells to help you keep the whale. So this is a really cool mechanic. There are like, what is it? Dimir in this set is all about drawing extra, sometimes even 3 cards a turn. So this shouldn't be a problem. This is great, honestly.
Yeah, it's a 3-drop that's not really a 3-drop because it's not the easiest thing to cast 2 spells on turn 4. And you only have 1 turn to do this.
Yeah. I mean, or you have instant speed spells on turn 5.
Yes, 2 of them in your upkeep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that also means your opponent didn't do it for 2 turns either.
Yeah, but again, it's not likely they're casting 2 spells a turn on turn 3 and 4 either. Still a very good card. Don't get me wrong. It's just like kind of one of those mana costs are not just like some removal spells, right? They're not really 3-drops.
Yes, I agree. In some situations it won't be, but I think that there are enough decks where I would feel comfortable still playing this on turn 3 at for sure on turn 4. Because you have to remember, like, even if what if you're not on the play, right? Your 3 is their 4, so you're preventing them from casting 2 spells on 4 and 5, and I think more people cast 2 spells on 4 and 5 than you'd think.
Yeah. I guess it depends how much of it is stopping them from doing that, or just letting them play their 4-drop instead of playing two 2-drops.
Depends on the deck. Some of us
Yeah,
play
it does.
creature decks or pump spells. Again, you want to make sure you have it set up for sure, but I think it's doable. I think this card is solid and not difficult to proliferate fairly early. So I'm happy with this card. It's I'm certainly not cutting this. I'm gonna say that this is. I'm gonna say this is a 7. I really like it because the proliferate will trigger on other things too. I'm very happy with this card.
Yeah, see, I agree on the rating. I just think I'm never casting this until like turn 6 when I can play this and another 3-drop and immediately get that counter.
Yep. I mean, that's definitely a way to play it. I'm not arguing that won't be the best option sometimes, but like, you play control decks with 5 creatures. I play a lot of creatures, right? So I usually follow up on turn 4 and 5 with multiple spells.
Yep.
So, like I said, it's just a difference in how we build our decks. You play a bunch of counter magic and stuff like that, which won't trigger this.
Yep.
We have Electrozoa. Yes, 3 mana for a 3/1 flash and flying. When it ETBs, you get 2 energy at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. Tap it unless you pay 1 energy. What is that noise? There's like some crazy. It kind of sounds like a plane, but it's weird. You guys probably can't hear it, but that is a very weird sound.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
It sounds like a loud vacuum or something. Anyway, I don't love this card if I'm not in the energy deck.
Yeah. I think if I'm going to have something that's going to consistently drain my energy, it needs to be higher impact than this.
Yes, even if you are in the energy deck, you're right. It's a 3-powered flyer for 3 mana that then does what for me, right? Like, it's a fine rate, especially with flash, it's great, but it's not good enough to justify the downside here. So I'm not for this card. I think this is like it's definitely picking up on the mic. Chat can probably hear, or YouTube can probably hear whatever that noise is. I think that this is like a 4.
Yeah, I think 4 sounds about right.
All right, so it sounds like we're in agreement on the Electrozoa.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sweet. Emrakul's Messenger, 2 mana for a 2/1 Eldrazi Fairy Rogue. That's interesting creature line. It has Devoid and Flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create an 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn that can tap for colorless. If you sacrifice it, I mean. So what are we thinking, Yanks, on this Emrakul Messenger?
Makes me think a lot of Eldrazi Sky Spawner from, I think it was Oath of the Gatewatch. Like a 3 mana.
I remember that one.
Flyer. Now it made a 1. It was making Eldrazi Scions, which were 1/1s that sacked, so that's a little better. And that card was really good.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty happy to take the mana cost down to get an 0/1 because I'm still getting the mana out of it, still get a chump blocker out of it.
Yeah, and there's counters and proliferate going on, so like it's gonna be useful regardless.
Yeah. No, again, actually, I kind of misread this card. Let me take it back. I didn't realize. I was thinking this was creating that when it enters the battlefield, not when you draw your second card.
Yeah. You have to do a little something, but you can do it more than once, which is cool. Honestly, a 2 mana 2/1 flyer, I'm here for it anyway. I would play this as like a reasonable bonus. So I think this card is a 6.
Yeah, I like it at 6. The one thing I think we still need to figure out in this set is Devoid a good thing or a bad thing? or neither? Like, does that just make it vulnerable to things, or does it actually have any payoffs or benefits?
I assumed it was a benefit. I didn't think it was going to be a drawback, but I don't know actually.
Only reason I think that is we saw that one counterspell that hits colorless things only.
Hmm.
So I'm just curious. I don't know yet. We'll have to figure that out as we go along.
Yeah, maybe. So what are you thinking rating
Well, I think it's
wise?
6.
All right.
6 as well, yeah.
Flare of Denial. 3 mana. You may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay this cost to counter target spell. So it's cancel with a bonus.
Yep. Free, but force of will or force of negation, this ain't.
The loud vacuuming shop vac guy is back. So I wish I could Flare of Denial him. I am fine with cancel. I like that it's a little bonus, but I don't want to sacrifice creatures to counter spells all that often. So I'm still gonna say that this is. Sorry, chat. You're just gonna have to deal with the shop back guy. Hopefully he goes away. I don't know. I'm running this, but I am not usually in love with counters, so I never rate them very highly. So I don't know. This is probably an 8.
Whoa, really?
I mean, that's me going high because I feel like that's me trying to compensate for the fact that I know I don't like this card.
I interesting. I think this card is barely playable.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God.
I
Okay.
think this card is. I think if you're in the market for cancel, then fine. But that's all I'm really viewing this card as.
Huzzah. Okay. So, like, I know this is, like, busted in Commander, like, free spells in Commander,
Sure.
like, you get, like, some nice bonuses. And I was thinking, like, I'll play a cancel as, like, a borderline playable, like, as a 23rd pick if I have the space. Or in really long formats sometimes with, like, big Haymaker bombs, I'll play them. But it's, like, a 5 for me. So I really didn't know how to evaluate the other ability in Limited.
No, I'm like in sealed deck. I'm playing this every time, but I'm also always playing cancel every time in sealed.
Yeah.
Or like you said, long grindy formats, or even if you just have a deck that wants to go long and grindy, then sure, put this in your deck and you'll probably be happy with it. But it's not significantly better than cancel in my mind.
Okay, I feel better about that then. Like I said, I was trying to compensate because I feel like I was undervaluing it. I'm still happy to give it a very solid score because, again, I'm fine with cancel, and the fact that you don't get punished by not holding up cancel when then they, so many times I will have it and then they play like a dragon. I'm like, oh, I picked the wrong time to play my 5-drop. Oops. You don't get punished in the same way that you typically do. So I think that that's still good. So I'm happy to, I'll hedge my bets and go in the middle and I'll go 7.
Yeah, your point about not having to hold it up is relevant. I think it just hurts this, and probably more so for this card than any of the rest of this cycle, is that kind of what we talked about earlier. Blue decks don't tend to have a lot of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to sacrifice one of your few threats to get this to work. To get the extra ability out of it. So I think I've got this at like a 6.5.
All right. Oops, wrong direction. All right. Harbinger of the Seas. We have a 3 mana 2/2 merfolk. Non-basic lands are islands.
Magus of the Seas.
Yeah, this is a constructed card. Yep. No, thank you. You could sideboard this in if someone has a splash for like with some duels or something, but I don't think that like most of the duels in this set are like sack lands that get basics, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you get them if they haven't played them yet.
Because they lose their abilities.
Yeah. So they turn all your foes into basic islands, but
so you could do this to shut off like the player who's using them for like waste mana.
Yeah, or just if they, if you're on the play on turn 3 and you play this and they were going to get a third color on turn 3 with their card, and now they just haven't played it out yet.
Yeah, but if that's all you're doing it for is to brick their like 1 or 2 of sack lands, then that I'm not boarding that in. So like I have to have a better reason.
I don't think this is good. I don't think this is good. I'm just trying to think of what it can hit in this set.
I think it can hit those lands specifically if your opponent is needing them more than turn 2 and 3 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you see them like in game one play like uh, a Kozilek's command or something that requires double colorless,
Yeah.
then maybe like you're saying. But yeah,
I mean, even if it just even if they have a bunch of like there is a colorless devoid deck where there are cards that say like kicker one colorless or
sure.
things like that. Sure, yeah. Then I'll probably board this in. I'll have picked it up because it was a late rare, and then
Yep.
put it in for just them. Or any really greedy 5-color deck, because that will always
Yeah.
exist as well. You'll have someone who has like 5 or 6 of those fetch lands,
Yeah.
and then I would bring this in too. Yeah, I think this is a 2.
Yep. I like it as a 2.
I think it would come in, but not very often.
Exactly.
Hope Ender Coatl, 3 mana for a 2/2 Eldrazi Snake with Devoid and Flash. When you cast a spell, counter target spell an opponent controls unless they pay 1 with flying. I love this card. This is fantastic. I'm happy to have a 1 mana like tax counter spell attached to a flyer with reach with a reasonable cost.
Yeah. Just force spike on a flash flyer you'd probably play anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why not?
I think this card is fantastic. I will rate this very well. Let's say I'm never cutting this card. I think this card is fantastic. 7.
I think 7 as well. I think the worst thing about this card is the people that will not just play this on turn 3 if they have nothing else to do with their mana, trying to like get someone later. Sometimes you just should just run this out.
Why do you gotta be mean to me? Don't.
I'm
There's no reason to throw shade here, okay?
I'm the one more likely to do that, to not want to play the creature out.
Kozilek's Unsealing, 3 mana for a Devoid enchantment. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4, 5, or 6, create 2/01s that can sack for colorless. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. I'd have to have a lot of Eldrazi, but I think Eldrazi is a thing in this set. But the average deck, no. This is a split card. This is a 1 and like 5.
Yeah, I don't even think it's great in those decks. So I'm with you. I think it's
the fact that the 4, 5s, and 6s make the mana to cast the 7s. I feel like there'll be a deck where I have like 5 7s if I want to make this work.
And they do make the colorless you'll need for some of those.
Yeah,
which is nice. But yeah, I'm with you on the split card. Like, this is useless in a lot of decks.
Yeah, it's a 1 and a 5 in just that one deck.
Yep.
Petrifying Meddler, 5 mana for a 4/5 with Devoid. When you cast a spell, tap up to 1 target creature, put a stun counter on it, and it has reach. That's not bad. A 4/5 with reach for 5 is like that borderline fringe playable, and it comes with, I don't know what the equivalent spell is that does this. What's like the signpost tap and stun card at this point?
I don't know. I always think of that effect as being on a creature like Frostlinks or stuff like that.
Yeah, we've started to see a couple of them that were really good, like in Eldraine. There was one set where it was like really good, where that was like 2 or 3 stun counters though, but like I was really surprised at how many times I lost to that card.
Yeah, like gonna be really annoyed that I can't think of the card.
Irrelevant right now. The tempo on this is great. The mana cost and ability is fine. So I'm into this. I think this is like a 6.
Yeah, not super exciting, but you'll play the first one.
Yeah. Royal Cartographer. We have a 2 mana 1/3 with landfall. When a land enters battlefield under your control, get an energy. You can tap, pay 6 energy to draw 3 cards. This is fine in any deck and fantastic upside in an energy deck. I like this card. I think this is a solid 2-drop curve filler, because you're going to eventually get the energy, and I'm okay with a 1/5 or 1/3, so I think this is a 5.
Yeah, definitely tilts higher in your energy decks, but 5 on average.
All right. Sage of the Unknowable. 2 mana for an 0/4. You can tap it, add colorless, spend this only to cast colorless spells or to activate an ability. So this is where it's paying you for Devoid, basically. It's an 0/4. I would need to have a lot of colorless spells for me to justify this. I would sideboard it in against aggressive decks. Happily, I would always pick these up like semi-late for sideboard. But I feel like it'll get cut unless I'm in specifically the Eldrazi or Devoid deck.
Yeah, maybe there's some deck that also has just a ton of mana costs for activated abilities. We haven't seen a ton of that yet, but I think you're right. I think this is sideboard unless you're Eldrazi.
Yeah. So rating-wise, I'm going to say it's like a 3?
Yeah, it's going to be a sideboard card such a high percentage of the time that it's not really worth the split rating.
I like that we've given ourselves a little bit more range between like 2 and 5, right? Like there's some playability there where it was either like 2 was like you can put this in if you have to. And I feel like that's kind of where this is. But then 3 was like we're happy with this. There was just not enough room there. So I like the 3s and 4s, I think, is where we're seeing the most flexibility. And I'm happier with our ratings.
Yeah, I like the range and even within sideboard cards itself, right? Like this is mostly a sideboard card, but it is playable. Some of the other ones really aren't. They're only useful in certain situations, otherwise they're actually dead. This isn't dead, it's just not good. Which are very different things.
All right. Serum Visionary. 3 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card and scry 2. That's a cute play on an ability and a creature.
I see what you did there, Wizards. Very, very cute.
It is very cute. I think this is a great card. 3 mana for a 2/2. A little sad, but when it comes with a big scry and a draw, in.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, you play that card for that other effect is clearly worth a full mana in like constructed even. Just the effect, then you're just getting 2 mana 2/2 on top of it, and it's all in one card. Yeah, I like that.
I'm never cutting this. I'm probably not even cutting like 2 of these. So I would say this is a solid 6. It's not super impactful on the 3-drop slot, so I'm hesitant to go all the way up to a 7, but very happy with this card.
Yeah, I'm in that 6, maybe 6.5 range, depending if maybe if you're in like a deck that just wants bodies to suit up with equipment or something.
Yep. Shadow of the Second Sun, enchant player. At the beginning of enchant player's post-combat main phase, there is an additional beginning phase after this phase.
Talk about a fun rules card.
What? Explain it to us. What are we doing here?
So you're going to cast this on yourself, and basically as an enchant player, and you go to your you pass through combat, and at the start of that main phase, an additional beginning phase is the technical term for all of what happens in untap, upkeep, draw. That is all the beginning phase. So you get to do all that again.
You get to draw again.
You get to draw again. You get to untap all your lands again, and play stuff that in your second main. Basically, you can use all your mana in your first main and use it again. Yeah, it's a weird one because almost nobody ever talks about the beginning phase. You just talk about untap, upkeep, draw, but that whole thing is the beginning phase.
Yeah, all those really like kind of annoying people that say untap, upkeep, draw every single time it's their turn. They've been doing it wrong this whole time. They don't even know what they're talking about. No, thank you. I mean, it is cool to get an additional set of land and draw step every turn, but like, I don't have a ton of confidence that this format will be long enough for me to be playing do nothing enchantments.
Yeah. Now, I guess the benefit on it is it is a do nothing card, but it doesn't cost you your turn because you play it on your first main and then you just get to untap your 6 lands and draw another card.
Yes.
So it doesn't blow a whole turn like some other do nothing enchantments do. And then it's a personal Howling Mine, basically a mana doubler.
Yeah. But if you are like on top deck mode, it very potentially could be 6 mana draw 1 card for that first turn. And I agree. then that will then pay you back over time, but the value of that will entirely be dependent on how long this format goes.
It's weird. This card feels just like you're saying, like it's do nothing, and I also feel like if somebody resolves this against me, I'm gonna be like, oh no.
Well, that's because your decks are made to win in the long game. So that means you've gone toe to toe with someone in the long game, and this will beat you. This will not beat me because I will have smashed them in the face long before this happens. And if them drawing one additional card on a turn, if I can't kill them at that point, then I'm dead anyway.
Yeah, this feels almost like I'm exaggerating, I know, but almost like an unbeatable bomb and sealed.
Man, I don't know. I'm hesitant to give it that much credit. I don't.
Like, I'm definitely exaggerating because you could just play this in a top deck, draw a land, untap, draw 2 more lands, and then you've done nothing. But
once upon a time, I would have agreed with you back when games were grindy, but like, most of the formats have not been that grindy.
Yeah, maybe it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, it would be a fun format if this was like insane.
Yeah,
but you and I both like the grindier formats, so. Rating wise, I think it's okay in a board stally deck. If you have some like board clears, good removal, like sure, it's going to be playable, but is going to. I'm willing to adjust my rating dependent on this format going longer than I think, but I'm going to say that this is like a 5 or 6.
Yeah, I acknowledge that you are probably right, but I'm just going to give it a 7 because I really hope this card is really good.
Yeah, it would be cool. I think that this is the type of... I would rather someone do this in Magic than like take extra turns, just because that feels a little wonky, but that's fine. All right. Strix Serenade. 1 mana for a counter target artifact, creature, or planeswalker spell. Its controller makes a bird creature token with flying. In limited, 2/2 birds are still really hard to deal with. So you're gonna 2 for 1 yourself like right away because you have to spend premium removal on a 2/2 bird like a lot of times.
I really appreciate this card just for the name of Strix Serenade as the takeoff on Swan Song.
Mm-hmm.
Being effectively the same card, except that hit enchantments, instants, and sorceries and gave him a bird, and this is artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers. It's like the other half.
That is very cute.
So I really appreciate that card, but yeah, I don't think this is a card you're going to be very happy with in limited. You see, well, there actually are no planeswalkers that can be cast in this format. I was going to say, if you see a planeswalker to counter, you'd be countering a creature. But if you see some bombs, maybe you can bring this in.
I mean, you can still counter the planeswalker is a creature when it comes into the battlefield.
Yeah,
you can still counter it.
Yeah, I was just funny. It's like there are no planeswalker spells in this format. I just caught myself thinking that you can still counter those cards. Though you're right.
You can't encounter the big enchantment though that costs 6.
Exactly.
So you're dead anyway.
It dodges Strix Serenade.
That's true. Yeah. I think this card's okay if you side it in if they have big dragons, or just put it in as a 23rd playable. I think it's like a 4.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Tamiyo meets the Story Circle. 2 mana for a saga. Chapter 1. Until your next turn, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets -2/-0 until end of turn. That's nice. It's all of them. Chapter 2. Discard any number of cards, then investigate twice the number discarded this way. Chapter 3, shuffle up to 3 target cards from your graveyard into your library.
This is pretty unimpressive.
It is kind of unimpressive. I feel like all of the things individually is kind of cool, but it's not impactful enough for me to be interested in doing, honestly. I would need like a really turtley deck.
Yeah.
I would need to like board this in against a Boros in a deck in which I have 6-drop bombs and then try to dig for them, you know?
Yeah, and if you're playing a deck with a bunch of bombs, it's tough to even discard a bunch of stuff because a lot of times you're discarding either things you need to stay alive or lands, and you need those lands to cast your expensive bombs.
Well, hypothetically, you're drawing more. If your deck is full of lands, things to keep you alive, and bombs, then you're just using this ability to cycle into a higher percentage of bombs, right? Throw away 2 spells, 2 lands to find 1 spell, 2 lands, and a bomb kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the right situation, I feel like that could be pretty net neutral with the upside of digging you deeper to a bomb.
Fair.
But it does give you twice as many investigation. I don't know. It's too slow. So I don't like it. I think it's a 2.
Yeah. I'm hesitant to give it even that high, but I think you're right. I think it's
I feel like there's a dirtly deck I will use this in.
I love dirtly decks, and I don't think I'm ever playing this card.
Tempest Harvester, 2 mana for a 2/1 merfolk. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. You can tap it, pay 1 energy, draw a card, then discard a card. I mean, it's a 2/1 for 2. That's fine. It gives you some energy for hopefully better spells, but I like looting in a pinch is reasonable. This is a curve filler for me. I'm going to say it's a 4.
Yeah. Nothing special. Just like a lot of things we've seen, gets better in the energy deck.
Triton Wavebreaker, 1 mana for a 1/1 with Bestow. As long as it is a creature, it has prowess, and the enchant creature gets +1/+1 and prowess. I like this. I feel like there's no reason not to run Bestow creatures. I think prowess is cool. So I'm going to give it a... It's just a 1/1. I kind of wish it was like a 2/2 for 2, but I'm going to say it's a 5.
Yeah, I think it's a 5. I like the bestow cards a lot, but this is definition of low impact.
Yep.
There's no reason not to play it, but it also just doesn't do a ton.
Agreed. All right. Tune the Narrative. 1 mana for draw a card and get 2 energy at instant speed. I want this in the energy deck, and I don't really want it in anything else. There's like a sub play more than 1 spell thing, but like...
Yeah, or blue-black drawing if you try to get up to drawing several cards a turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just filler.
The average deck, not excited, so I'm going to say this is like a 4.
Yeah, it's not even exciting in the decks that want it. It's just functional in those
It's
decks.
just fine.
Yeah.
Ugin's Binding. 3 mana for an instant speed devoid spell. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Whenever you cast a colorless spell with mana value 3 or mana value 7 or greater, you may exile Ugin's Binding from your graveyard. When you do, return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. So you bounce a thing, and then when you play a huge creature, you get to
Cyclonic Rift.
cow clone them.
Yeah.
You get to cow rift them. My new favorite version of Cyclonic Rift has the flying cow, and so I just call it Cow Rift now. Okay. I mean, there's a deck that wants this, certainly. It's a 3 mana instant speed bounce. So like it's not unplayable.
Yeah, of anything, not just creatures.
Yeah, and then if you have I think I would need at least 1 option in my deck for this.
Yeah.
Because it's too highly costed otherwise, but I would gamble on the upside of doing this, so
yeah, as long as I can trigger this once, or if I'm just really desperate for removal.
Yeah. So 5?
Yeah, I'll give it 5.
All right. Unfathomable Truths. Close enough. 5 mana for a Devoid. Draw 3 cards and create an 0/1 Eldrazi token. That's fine. Instant speed, draw 3.
Yeah.
It's solid. I think this is like... draw spells that get this expensive tend to be pretty iffy in a good chunk of decks, but this one seems good. 5.
Yeah, we've seen a decent number of flash things and some counters and some other instant speed stuff, and the more you have, the more these cards get better. But yeah, I still think it's just kind of the going rate for this effect nowadays, so 5 seems right.
Utter Insignificance. 2 mana for a flash creature, enchant creature. It loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 1/1. And you can also pay 3 to exile the enchanted creature. We saw this on a white card not that long ago. It's interesting you have 2 flash enchantments that turn things into frogs, basically.
Yeah.
And I like that you can, exile it when you get the free mana. So you can not hold a lot of mana up, do it on their end step, and then do it when you have some time to prevent them from eventually getting out of it.
Yeah, the biggest biggest difference versus that white card is that you kind of need quote unquote another color to do it in this.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, I still think you'll between Eldrazi Spawn and the sack lines, you'll have a decent chance at doing it, but it's not completely free.
And even if you can't do it, there's always a chance that they don't have things. Like there's a good number of decks where my opponents lock down a creature and I just like move it off to the side. I'm like, that's never being played ever again. Like
Yep.
that's not a thing I can ever look at. So, eh?
Yeah, I mean it's what blue gets for removal.
Yeah, I think this is solid. I'm pretty happy with one of these. I would say that this is a 7.
Yeah, it can't quite crack that premium level, but that's what blue gets for removal, and it gets the job done.
Yeah, this is as close as blue's gonna get, I think, to premium removal. So.
Yep.
All right, now we have a Stormdrake. Volatile Stormdrake, 2 mana for a 3/2 flying hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. When it enters the battlefield, exchange control of the Drake and target creature an opponent controls. If you do, you get this many energy. Then sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value.
So this is kind of a part of a cool cycle in this set that's throwbacks to reserveless cards, but they require energy to use instead of just happening. So like this is a throwback to Gilded Drake from Urza Saga, which just swapped creatures. There's a black card that does it for Recurring Nightmare. There's a Wheel of Fortune variant, stuff like that. So I just think that's kind of a cool cycle.
I don't understand. So you have to swap control, exchange control of
Yes.
this and other things. And then you have to pay energy based on CMC. So you have to have other energies for it to be something greater than 4 CMC, which honestly, a 3/2 flyer that is partially hexproofed for 2 mana is just like what I would prefer to have anyway. So
Yep.
I'm not really understanding that I need other energy enablers to get anything better than what this creature is that I'm giving them, and I'm not into that.
Yeah, I mean the original card was a 2 mana 3/3 flyer that did the exchange thing with no energy stuff, and that card is currently well over $200.
Is that because it's never
It's
been reprinted, or because
never
it's
been
actually that
reprinted,
good?
and it's got some very weird combo shenanigans that goes on with it. It
feel
saw a
like
lot of play at the time in Standard.
I feel like it's $200 because it hasn't been reprinted.
Oh, that's definitely the driving factor, but there are plenty of cards in Urza Saga that are not $200. There is some value to this. I'm not sure in Limited there's any.
I don't want it.
No, I don't particularly either. I just think it's a cool throwback.
I mean, I have to have like 4 mana is going to be probably breaking even to this. So I can't get anything better, and chances are I'll end up with something worse. So, If I have other energy, cool. But if not,
Yeah, I'm with you on whether or not it's good. It's not.
I'm gonna say that this is a 4. I've seen a fair amount of other energy things like landfall energy and like the uncommon vehicle to where like maybe this will be good in the average. Maybe it will be playable in the average blue deck. So I'm gonna give it a 4.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm right in that same area. At a 4. If you have the infinite energy deck, then sure, but you still are relying on your opponent playing something you really want to steal to make this worthwhile.
And then you still have to deal with a 3/2 flyer that's partially hexproof.
Yeah. Yep.
Sheesh. It's not even a freebie.
Yeah, I guess one way to kind of look at it, right, is basically you can pay 2 mana to get 4 energy and downgrade their creature, their bomb.
Yeah. If you have the, I mean, I'm assuming most of their bombs cost more than 4 though, so you
Oh,
need
I'm
the
not
other
even saying.
things.
I'm not saying you're even getting to keep it. I'm saying you're getting 4 energy, and then you can sacrifice that thing, and
Oh, you're
you've
saying you just
you've
turn
turned
their
their
bomb into a
yeah
3/2?
yeah.
Uh,
That not thrilled with that by any means, but it can be an answer to something insane.
yeah. I feel like we just had one where it was like they get an ox or something, like a 2/2 on the ground, like at like common or whatever. So let's just do that. I don't want to give them a 3/2 flyer. Next up, we have the Hydroelectric Specimen, 3 mana for a 1/4 flash. A lot of flash in this set. When it enters the battlefield, you may change the target of target instant or sorcery with a single target to this creature. And it's also a modal. It's a land, which makes it free. So it doesn't even matter that if it's not good, because it's good, because it's free. You put it in with a land, and you're good.
Yeah, and you can also sometimes get a 3 mana thing that eats their lightning bolt.
Yep. Or their combat trick.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be it doesn't need to save your bomb from an epic removal spell to be good. This could literally just brick their +3/+3 and first strike or whatever, and then now your creature eats their creature, and they burned a spell for it. I'm in.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, rating wise, it's good. It's a modal. It's a 7.
7. Yep.
It's hard for me to rate a modal land anything lower than a 7, just because they're all spectacular. The next one is Sink into Stupor. 3 mana for a return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So it's an expensive bounce spell on a land. 7. 6.5.
Yeah, it lets you also do stack shenanigans with spells. Save your own spell from a counter spell by just returning it back to your hand so you can play it later or something.
Yeah. Love
7.
it. You're on the 7 boat?
Yep.
I'm gonna say 6.5 just because I think the other one was better.
Yeah, that's fair.
Next up, we have Tamio, Inquisitive Student, a Moonfolk wizard with flying. She's an 0/3. Whenever Tamio, investigator, engaged, whatever, something, investigate.
Inquisitive student.
Well, I kept wanting to say investigate instead of inquisitive, so
Yep.
it just kept slurring together. So you get a clue, which is cool. Whenever you draw your 3rd card in a turn, exile this and return it to the battlefield, transform into a seasoned scholar. And then she has a +2. She comes in with 2 loyalty. +2 until end of your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, -1/-0. Protects itself. -3, which you can't do right away. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's a green card, add 1 mana of any color. Cool. Some good value. -7. Draw cards equal to half the number of cards in your library rounded up. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Planeswalkers be planeswalkering. I don't think this is as good as a Johnny. It's a lot slower, a lot grindier, a lot more difficult to do powerful things on the first 2 abilities.
And it can't do anything on its own. Like a Johnny, you could just make cats all day and win that way.
You make clues
spells.
all day, which hopefully
Oh,
enables the archetype that this wants to be in.
On the creature side. I'm thinking more. You're right. I was thinking of the planeswalker side.
Yeah.
But you're right. You
get to flashback your spells over and over again, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm just saying you have to have good spells.
Yeah. This is nowhere near as powerful as a Johnny. I gave a Johnny a 10. I think this is like a 7. I'm probably not cutting this, right?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't.
But it's not like bringing down the house either. It can win the game if it hits them a million times and like enables a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like there's going to be plenty of times where I'm just not going to even want this to flip.
Yeah. I feel like once you have gotten 4 or 5 clues, I'm probably interested in recurring those spells, like my removals and stuff. So I think I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I think 7's about right, though.
All right. Deep Analysis. 4 mana for target player draws 2 cards with flashback. I like flashback. That's a lot of cards. Life is a resource. It's sorcery speed, so I'm a little sad about it. We've had some really good card draw so far in this color, so I don't think I need to go too overboard with this.
No, but it does target, which is nice. You can deck your opponent with this, which is always fun.
That happens way less. I have killed my opponent with the one that says target player loses 2 and draws 2. I've killed people with that.
Yeah. Sign in blood? Yeah.
Yes. I've killed people with the damage on sign in blood more than I've milled them out. So I would say that that's less relevant.
I've definitely decked people with deep analysis. It's a lot of fun. That was also like 10 years ago.
When the rocks were soft and the games were longer.
Yes. And this card was a lot better then because it was being played in a lot of decks that had ways to just get it in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And you just played the flashback cost.
Rating wise, I think this is fine, solid. I'm gonna say that this is there's better draw, but you can do it twice, so I'll give it a bump. I'll say it's a 5.
Yeah, maybe it's nostalgia. I'm gonna give it a 6. Just the fact that this can be a 4-for-1 is really nice.
All right, Estrid's Invocation, 3 mana for an enchantment. You may have the invocation enter the battlefield as a copy of an enchantment you control, except it has at the beginning of your upkeep. You may exile this enchantment. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Not a limited thing.
Yeah.
1.
Yep.
It could copy your 6-mana enchantment to give you multiple.
Yes.
But I am not interested in doing that.
Agreed.
All right, so it's a 1. Kappa Cannoneer, 6 mana for a...
You mean Blastoise?
Yeah, Blastoise, 6 mana for a 4/4 with Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating a mana ability pays for 1. It has Ward 4, and whenever Blastoids or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on this.
Yes, it's effectively a 5/5.
Yeah. I would it's hard to say without looking at the other artifacts, but there were some weapons we saw which are already like weapons I was pretty happy to play. So I want to say that there's probably a pretty hefty chunk of things that would make this viable, but the average deck is not interested in a 6 mana 5/5. Well, it has Ward 4. Maybe it is.
Yeah, you need a few ways to reliably trigger this because the value in this card is that it becomes unblockable.
Also, like, they could have definitely called this a War Turtle, and that would have been better. It would have been so much closer to War Turtle. Huge missed opportunity, unfortunately. I don't know. The average deck is not going to play this, I don't think. I think it's like a 4.
Yeah, I have nightmares of the number of times I've died to this card in Vintage Cube, but there's a lot more free artifacts in Vintage Cube that are not showing up in regular Limited.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, so
Reefworm, 5 mana for an 0/1. When it dies, create a 3/3 bluefish token with when this creature dies, create a 6/6. When this creature dies, create a 9/9 blue kraken. Holy shit.
This was in Masters 25, I believe, and the card was nuts. I think it's really hard to deal with.
It seems really cool because you can't attack into it.
Yeah.
So you have to like be beating them in the air or something for this to be relevant.
Yeah, the only thing we don't know yet from this is how much exile removal there is in the set.
And a lot of times one of those exile spells is like a 3 CMC or less kind of thing. So like there's a reasonable chance that this is going to get beefy. I love the flavor on it. It's very cool.
Yeah, actually, I guess the other thing we have seen a lot of in blue is bounce. So you can just kill
bounce one of the token.
And then bounce the 3/3.
Yeah, that's possible. But I still think it is good.
Agreed. I very much like this card.
What's your rating?
I think I want to give this like a 7.5. Yeah.
I'm willing to bump it a little. I'm willing to go an 8. I think this can win games if left to do its thing, which is kind of that was like my 4 ish range. So I think that this is like an 8 for me. It needs to be
Yeah,
left alone, but it'll do it.
yeah, I was right on the border between those two.
Yeah. Shrieking Drake, 1 mana for a 1/1 flying Drake. When it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. It's good with ETBs. It's cheap to play regardless. I think this is fine in the right deck. It'll be very synergistic, which is cool. Helps you with casting multiple spells if you need to do that, which is nice.
Sure.
Retriggering ETBs. I'm here for this. I think it's a solid 5.
Yeah, I think the average deck for me, I'm a little lower. I think I've got this as like a 4. There will definitely be decks that want it, though, like you're saying.
I agree. It's probably a little lower on average. All right. Subtlety, 4 mana for a flash flying elemental incarnation. It's a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it top or bottom of their library, and it has evoke. Okay, so it's just a bounce spell on a stick. I'm into that. I think I'm not cutting this card, but I'm not jumping up and down either. So probably it does put it on the library, so it's like way net positive. I'm here for this. Oh, and it kills the stupid token we just saw.
Well, no, it doesn't. It's not a bounce spell. It only hits spells on the stack.
Oh, it only. Oh.
It's like it's a conditional sort of like memory lapse counterspell type card.
That is still cool. It's still. Yeah. It doesn't help you get back into the game in that way, like a bounce, but it also. Yeah. It's funny, there's no planeswalkers for this to hit in the set, huh?
No.
That's because they're always a creature on the stack. That's interesting. Yeah. It's still tempo. I'm still here for it. I'm a little sadder that it can't hit other things, so 6.
Yes,
maybe a 7.
Card gets a lot better in really high power formats where the stuff you're hitting is often worth, like the turn delay it's often worth exiling the blue card and taking the sort of 2-for-1. When you actually have to leave mana up to really get value out of it, this card gets a lot worse, but it's still a 4 mana 3/3 flash flying, which is still fine.
Yeah. And then just even if you're just time walking like whatever their crappy 4 or 5 drop is, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Honestly, I was rating it based on its ability, but you're right. The 3/3 flying flash, I think it is just better. I think it's a 7.
Yeah, I like this as a 7.
All right. That's the end of blue. What do you think, Yanks? It's your favorite color. Are you happy?
I like blue. I'm not 100% sure what it's supposed to be doing other than energy.
And Devoid.
Eldrazi's. Sure, yeah, there's Devoid.
And like rampant of fatties.
Like, I guess the Devoid thing, I'm still not fully clear on what the payoff is.
I think it is make Eldrazi things and make 10/10s.
Making 10/10s is good.
I think that's what we're doing.
I guess other than Ugin's Binding, which we did see the colorless spell 7 mana value or greater.
All right. We're depending on you guys. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of blue for this set. And we will see you guys in the next video when we go over every single black card in Modern Horizons 3. See you next time.